All right, let's break down the savanna climate into the most simple, easy to understand details, especially focusing on temperature and precipitation, rainfall. I'll explain each part step by step, like a conversation, so it's easy to follow. Temperature in the savanna climate. 1. Where is the savanna climate? Savanna regions are located between about 5 degrees to 10 degrees and 15 to 20 degrees north and south of the equator. This means these areas are fairly close to the equator, but not as close as the tropical rainforest areas. 2. Why is it hot in the savanna? In savanna areas, the midday sun is almost directly overhead, right above, for much of the year. Because of this, days are very sunny and hot, with little change in temperature throughout the year. The average temperature is usually between 24 degrees and 27 degrees Celsius, around 75 to 81 degrees. So it stays warm all year. 3. Difference between day and night length. Near the equator, day and night are almost equal in length all year. This means there's little difference in how long the sun is out each day in the savanna. 4. Is the savanna climate similar to equatorial climate? Yes, it's similar because both are warm, but in the savanna, the temperature range is slightly bigger than in the equator's tropical rainforest. 5. Why is there a slightly bigger temperature range? Because the savanna is a little farther from the equator. It has slightly cooler winters and hotter summers. Winters are usually dry and cloudless, so temperatures drop more at night. Just before the rainy season, temperatures are highest because there's no rain to cool things down yet. 6. Temperature range. The annual temperature range difference between hottest and coldest months in the savanna is usually 3 degrees Celsius to 8 degrees Celsius. This is a bigger range than in tropical rainforest regions, but still smaller than in temperate climates. Precipitation, rainfall in the savanna climate. 1. How much rain does the savanna get? Savanna regions get 100 to 150 centimeters, or about 40 to 60 inches of rain each year on average. Most of this rain falls in the summer season. 2. Wet and dry seasons. The savanna climate has a rainy season in the summer and a dry season in the winter. This means that during part of the year it rains a lot, and during the other part it rains very little or not at all. 3. Rainfall patterns across the savanna. The savanna is located between tropical rainforest areas, which get lots of rain, and steppe areas, which are drier. So the amount of rainfall in the savanna varies depending on the location. 4. Polewood versus equatorwood rainfall. Polewood edges, closer to the poles of the savanna, get less rain because they're closer to drier climate steppe. Equatorwood edges, closer to the equator of the savanna, get more rain because they're closer to wetter tropical climates. 5. Rainfall range in different parts of the savanna. In areas closer to the tropical rainforest, rainfall is generally higher. In areas closer to the steppe, rainfall is generally lower. Summary of key points for savanna climate. Temperature, warm all year, with an average of 24 degrees to 27 degrees Celsius. A small temperature range between seasons, 3 degrees to 10, but warmer in summer and slightly cooler in winter. Precipitation, total yearly rainfall is 100 to 150 centimeters, with a distinct rainy season in summer and a dry season in winter. Rainfall is higher near the equator and decreases towards the poles. Examples of life in the savanna. Animals. You might see animals like lions, elephants, zebras, and giraffes in African savannas, as well as kangaroos in Australian savannas. Plants. Grasses dominate, but there are also scattered trees like acacia that have adapted to survive dry seasons. In simple terms, the savanna is a warm, grassy area with two main seasons, wet and dry. It's always warm, but there's a bit of a seasonal difference in temperature, especially during dry winters. Rainfall is concentrated in summer, making it a climate that supports both grasslands and drought-resistant trees. All right, let's go through this in even simpler terms, line by line. We'll break it down to really understand how the savanna climate works, especially its rainy and dry seasons. What is the savanna climate? The savanna climate has two main seasons. One, a rainy season, when it rains a lot. Two, a dry season, when it hardly rains at all. This type of climate is found in places near the equator, like parts of Africa, South America, India, and Australia. In these places, the climate changes throughout the year. Why does the savanna have rainy and dry seasons? The savanna's weather is affected by something called the Intertropical Convergence Zone, ITC, high-pressure winds. 1. The ITC, Intertropical Convergence Zone. The ITC is a band of warm, wet air near the equator. When the ITC is over the savanna, it brings rainy weather. The ITC moves north and south during the year following the sun. 2. High-pressure winds. These winds bring dry air and are strongest in the winter. When high-pressure winds blow into the savanna, it becomes dry and doesn't rain. What happens in each season? Let's look at what happens in the rainy and dry seasons of the savanna. One rainy season, summer. When? The rainy season happens around March to August. What happens? The ITC moves over the savanna, bringing warm, moist air. Rain. This air is full of moisture, which turns into heavy rain and even thunderstorms. How much rain? It rains a lot, enough to make rivers and plants flourish. Some areas get up to 100 to 150 centimeters of rain each year during this season. Example, in Sudan, the rain starts in March, gets stronger by July or August, and then slowly decreases. During this time, the savanna looks green and full of life. Plants, especially tall grasses, grow very quickly. 2. Dry season, winter. When? The dry season usually starts around October or November and lasts until March. What happens? The ITC moves away from the savanna. Dry winds. Without the ITC, the savanna is influenced by high-pressure winds that bring in dry, desert-like air. No rain. These dry winds stop the rain, and the savanna becomes very dry. These dry winds even have special names in some places. Harmattan in West Africa near the Sahara Desert. Khamsin in Egypt. The air can feel hot, dusty and dry like being in a desert. Grass and plants dry up, rivers shrink, and it's hard to find water. How do plants and animals cope with these seasons? 1. Plants. During the rainy season, plants grow quickly, storing water and nutrients. During the dry season, some plants go dormant, meaning they stop growing and save their energy until it rains again. 2. Animals. During the rainy season, animals stay in the savanna, enjoying the green plants and abundant water. During the dry season, many animals migrate to find water. For example, zebras and elephants travel long distances to reach rivers or waterholes. Summary of seasonal changes in the savanna. 1. Rainy season, summer. The ITC moves in, bringing warm, wet air. Heavy rains and thunderstorms make the savanna green and full of life. March to August is the peak of the rainy season. 2. Dry season, winter. The ITC moves away, and high-pressure winds bring dry air. The savanna gets little or no rain. The air feels hot and dry. October to March is the dry season. Quick facts to remember. Savanna climate equals rainy season plus dry season. Rainy season brings ITC and wet air, while the dry season brings dry winds. Plants and animals adapt by storing energy or moving to find water. The savanna climate has a beautiful cycle, with each season providing unique challenges and opportunities for the life that thrives there. All right, let's go over this in even simpler, detailed steps to understand the savanna climate. 1. What is the savanna climate? The savanna climate is a type of climate found in areas that have a clear, wet season with a lot of rain and a dry season with almost no rain. This climate is usually located between tropical rainforests and deserts. Where is it found? Between 5 degrees and 20 degrees latitude on either side of the equator. Think of places like parts of Africa, such as Kenya and Tanzania, Brazil and Australia. 2. Why the weather changes in savannas. The savanna climate is influenced by two main air pressure systems. Intertropical Convergence Zone, ITC, a belt of low pressure around the equator where warm, moist air rises, causing rain. This brings the wet season. Subtropical high pressure system. This brings down dry, stable air, creating dry weather. So, depending on the season, the savanna can have either a wet season, when the ITC moves closer and brings rain, a dry season, when the subtropical high-pressure system is overhead, pushing rain away. 3. How close you are to the equator changes the seasons. The closer an area in the savanna is to the equator, the shorter the dry season and more rain it will get. But as you move further from the equator, the dry season becomes longer and rain is less reliable. 1. Close to the equator, like in Kenya or Tanzania, they have 2 wet seasons, 2 times in a year when it rains, and 2 dry seasons, 2 times when it's dry. 2. Further from the equator, places further from the equator will have 1 longer dry season and 1 wet season. Eventually, as you move even farther, the climate becomes more like a desert with very little rain. 4. Temperature in the savanna. High temperatures all year. Because it's close to the equator, temperatures are mostly high throughout the year, around 24 degrees to 27 degrees C. Little difference between summer and winter. The sun is almost directly overhead, so days and nights are nearly the same length. This keeps temperatures steady. But during winter, the dry season, the skies are clear and nights can be a bit cooler. Just before the wet season starts in summer, it gets very hot. 5. Rainfall in the savanna. Total annual rain. The savanna gets between 100 and 150 centimeters of rain each year. Most of it falls in the wet season. Uneven rainfall. The amount of rain can be different each year. Some years there may be lots of rain. Other years there may be very little rain. This uneven rain can lead to droughts when it doesn't rain enough, or floods when it rains too much. 6. Problems caused by unpredictable rainfall. Because rain in the savanna is not predictable, it can lead to problems like drought. When rain is delayed or doesn't come, the soil becomes dry, making it hard for plants and crops to grow. This can lead to famine, food shortages, floods. When there is too much rain, the ground can't absorb all the water. This can destroy crops and create standing water, which can lead to diseases. Key points to remember. Savanna climate has clear, wet and dry seasons. The closer you are to the equator, the shorter the dry season. High temperatures throughout the year. Rainfall is unpredictable, which can cause droughts or floods. This balance between wet and dry seasons creates a unique environment that's perfect for grasslands with a few scattered trees and supports animals like lions, elephants and giraffes that are adapted to these seasonal changes. All right, let's go even deeper and break everything down step by step in the easiest way to understand. 1. What is the savanna climate? The savanna climate is found in tropical areas, which means warm places near the middle of the earth. This climate has 2 main seasons. A wet season, this is when it rains a lot. A dry season, this is when it hardly rains at all. Plants and animals in the savanna have to adjust to these changes between the wet and dry seasons to survive. Vegetation in the savanna. What plants grow here? The plants in the savanna are different from other areas because they need to survive both the rainy and dry seasons. Here's what they look like and why. Grasslands with scattered trees. Grasslands. Most of the land is covered in grass, which is easier to grow with less rain. There aren't thick forests here. Instead, there are just a few trees here and there, spread out from each other. This is because trees need to save water, and the space helps them do that. Deciduous trees. The trees in the savanna are mostly deciduous, which means they lose their leaves in the dry season. Why lose their leaves? Leaves lose water through tiny holes, and by dropping their leaves, trees lose less water. This helps them save water during the dry season. Wow, long roots. These trees have long roots that grow deep into the ground. This helps them reach water that's far down in the soil, which is especially helpful in the dry season when there's no rain. Fire-resistant trees. Some trees in the savanna are fire-resistant. This means they can survive fires. Fires can happen because the grass gets very dry and lightning storms are common in the savanna. Top 3. Types of plants and trees closer to and farther from the equator. The plants in the savanna change a bit depending on how close they are to the equator, the middle line of the earth where it's hottest and wettest. Near the equator, here, there's more rain, so the grass grows taller and the trees are closer together. Plants look fuller and more green. Farther from the equator, there's less rain, so the grass is shorter and trees are smaller and more spread out. 4. Animal life in the savanna. The savanna is famous for its animals, especially in Africa. People sometimes call it nature's zoo because it has so many big animals. Here's how we can think of the animals here. Herbivores, plant-eating animals. These animals eat the grass and plants in the savanna. Elephants, they eat a lot of leaves and grass. Giraffes, they have long necks to reach high leaves on trees. Zebras, they eat grass and can run fast to escape from hunters. Rhinos and antelope, they also eat plants and grass. Carnivores, meat-eating animals. These animals hunt the herbivores for food. Lions, they hunt animals like zebras and antelopes. Lions often work together to catch their food. Leopards and tigers, they also hunt smaller animals and hide in trees for cover. Hyenas, wild dogs, jackals, and wolves. These animals often eat leftovers that bigger hunters like lions leave behind. 5. The seasons in the savanna. Wet season and dry season. The savanna has a very clear pattern in its seasons, and it's very different from places that get rain all year. Here's how the seasons work. Wet season, rainy, wet. This happens in part of the year when there's a lot of rain. What happens? Grass grows tall, rivers and lakes fill up, and there's plenty of food and water for the animals. Plants and animals. This is when plants can grow and animals have plenty to eat and drink. Dry season. When? This happens in the other part of the year when there's almost no rain. What happens? The grass turns dry and yellow, trees drop their leaves to save water, and animals may move to find water and food. Plants and animals. Plants don't grow as much, and animals have to be smart to find water and food. 6. Rainfall in the savanna. Rainfall in the savanna isn't very predictable. This means some years it rains a lot. When this happens, plants and animals have a good year with plenty of water. Some years it rains very little. This can lead to droughts where there isn't enough water. Droughts make it hard for plants and animals to survive. Heavy rains can cause floods. Sometimes it rains too much, causing floods. Floods can damage plants and spread diseases, which can harm both animals and humans. 7. Example of savanna life. Imagine you're in a huge grassy park with only a few trees here and there. Some months it rains a lot, so everything is green and full of life, but during other months it hardly rains and the grass turns yellow and dry. The animals have to adjust to these changes in rain to survive. Extra details to help remember the savanna. The savanna climate is found in Africa, South America and Australia and other tropical regions. It's a place where plants and animals are experts at surviving both plenty of rain and almost no rain. People have to be careful in these areas because droughts and floods can be hard to handle for the land, animals and humans living there. This is the savanna, a unique environment where both plants and animals have special ways to adapt to the constant changes between rain and dryness. It's one of the world's most incredible natural habitats. All right, let's make this explanation super simple so that everything about the tropical monsoon climate is clear and easy to remember. Chapter 1. What is tropical monsoon climate? The tropical monsoon climate is a type of weather that changes a lot during the year. This happens because of something called monsoon winds. Monsoon winds are strong winds that change direction depending on the season. These winds make the weather very rainy in the summer and dry in the winter. 2. Why do monsoon winds change? Monsoon winds change direction because of two things: the land, the ground, and the ocean, the sea. During different seasons, the land and ocean heat up and cool down differently. This causes the wind to change direction. 3. How monsoon winds work. Summer, Rainy season. In the summer, the land gets very hot. Warm air rises over the land. This pulls in cool, moist air from the ocean toward the land. When this moist air hits the land, it brings heavy rain. Example, think of it like a sponge soaking up water and squeezing it out as rain. Winter, dry season. In winter, the land cools down faster than the ocean. Cold, dry air moves from the land toward the ocean. Result, this dry air makes the weather on land dry with little to no rain.
4.
Where is tropical monsoon climate found? The tropical monsoon climate is mostly found in Asia, especially in the eastern and southern parts. Here are some countries where this climate is common. India, Bangladesh, Myanmar, Burma, Indochina, Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, southern China, the Philippines. Other countries where monsoon winds bring some seasonal rain and temperature changes include Taiwan, Japan, Korea.
5.
Example of monsoon climate in action. Let's take India as an example. In the summer, warm ocean winds blow from the Indian Ocean onto the land. These winds carry a lot of moisture, which falls as heavy rains. This is called the monsoon season, and it makes everything green and full of water. In the winter, the winds change direction and blow from the land back toward the ocean. These winds are dry, and India doesn't get much rain during this.
6.
What makes monsoon climates different in each place? The tropical monsoon climate can look a bit different from one place to another. Why? Because each place has unique land features, mountains, valleys, etc. Direction of the coastline where the land meets the sea. Location, how close or far it is from the equator. These things can make the monsoon climate in some places slightly different. For example, South China, here because of the way the land and coast are shaped, the winter monsoon brings rain instead of dry air. 7. Extra details to help remember. Monsoon means season in Arabic. It's called that because it brings a big seasonal change. Monsoon season brings life-giving rain to farms, rivers and lakes. It's a time of plenty. Dry season can be harsh because there's no rain, and plants, animals and people have to rely on stored water. 1. The tropical monsoon climate has two main seasons, a rainy season in summer and a dry season in winter. 2. It's caused by monsoon winds that change direction because of the heating and cooling of the land and the ocean. 3. This climate is found in parts of Asia and affects countries like India, China, Japan and the Philippines. 4. Monsoon climates can vary depending on the landscape and coastline direction. This is the tropical monsoon climate, a powerful and life-giving weather pattern that makes some parts of the world green and lush for half the year and dry and quiet for the other half. All right, let's make this super clear and simple so you understand everything about temperatures in the tropical monsoon climate. 1. Temperature in coastal regions near the sea. In places near the sea, like coastal regions, the temperature stays warm and steady throughout the year. It doesn't change too much. 2. Temperature cycle in tropical monsoon versus tropical rainforest climate. Compared to places with tropical rainforest climates, where temperatures don't change much all year, tropical monsoon areas have a more noticeable cycle of warm and cool times each year.
Number 3.
Summer temperatures, hottest time. The hottest temperatures happen right before the rainy season starts. During this time, the sky is clear and there are no clouds to block the sun. When rains come, when the rains begin, temperatures drop because the clouds block the sun and the rain cools down the air. Average summer temperature. During summer, temperatures in tropical monsoon areas are usually between 27 degrees Celsius and 32 degrees Celsius. Example of extreme heat. In some places in India, like in the northern plains, it can get very hot before the rains. Temperatures here can go as high as 37.8 degrees Celsius to 48.9 Celsius in May or June. People in these areas feel a hot, dry wind called the loo. It's very strong and can be dangerous if you're outside for too long. 4. Winter temperatures. In winter, The temperature in landlocked areas can vary a lot, from 10 to 26.7 degrees Celsius. In places that are farther from the equator, higher latitudes, it can get even colder, sometimes reaching freezing or below freezing temperatures in some areas.
5.
Temperature range throughout the year, annual range. The difference between the highest and lowest temperatures over the whole year is called the annual temperature range. In tropical monsoon climates, this range is much larger than in equatorial near the equator areas. For example, Allahabad, India, annual range is 18.4 degrees. Agra, India, annual range is 20.2 degrees. Rangoon, Myanmar, annual range is only 5.3 degrees Celsius. Bombay, Mumbai, India, annual range is 11 degrees Celsius. The temperature range changes because of factors like how close the place is to the sea, cloud cover, and its height above sea level. Now we're at 6. Day to night temperature change. Diurnal range. Diurnal range means the difference between the highest and lowest temperatures in a single day. Inland areas. Inland places have a bigger diurnal range because they heat up and cool down faster. Example, in Sindh, a region in Pakistan, the diurnal range can be over 16.7 degrees. Coastal areas, coastal places near the sea, have a smaller diurnal range because the sea keeps the temperature more stable. Madras, Chennai, diurnal range is less than 11 degrees. Diurnal range about 8.3 degrees. Summer diurnal range. The diurnal range is highest during dry summer months because the air heats up a lot in the day and cools quickly at night when there are no clouds to trap the heat. 7. Summary. Tropical monsoon climates have warm temperatures that change throughout the year, unlike tropical rainforest climates. Summer is the hottest season and temperatures cool down with the rains. Inland areas can have extreme highs before the rains and cold winters, while coastal areas stay warm and stable. The annual range of temperature varies greatly depending on location, with inland areas experiencing larger changes. The diurnal range, day to night temperature difference, is also greater inland and highest in dry summer months. This gives you a full picture of temperatures in tropical monsoon climates, how they change throughout the year and day, and the reasons behind these changes. All right, let's dive into precipitation in tropical monsoon climates explained in the simplest way possible, one step at a time. 1. Lots of rain during rainy season. Tropical monsoon climates have a lot of rain, especially during the rainy season. The rainy season in these areas brings very heavy and intense rain. 2. Short dry season. Even though there's a short dry season when there's little or no rain, the rain during the wet months is so heavy that it more than makes up for it. Example, think of it like getting a huge amount of water for a few months, which is enough to last through the dry period. 3. Moisture in soil helps plants. The soil in these regions can hold on to moisture from all that rain. This stored moisture helps support plants and keep the land green even during the short dry season. 4. Summer is the rainy season. In tropical monsoon climates, summer is the rainy season. During this time, the winds blow from the warm oceans onto the land, bringing a lot of moisture with them. 5. How rain happens, moisture-laden winds. The moisture-laden winds are pushed upward when they reach highlands or mountains. When these winds rise, they cool down and form clouds, which leads to heavy rainfall. Example, it's like squeezing a wet sponge. When the winds go up, they release the moisture as rain. 6. Where rain is heaviest. Coastal areas backed by highlands, mountains, get the most rain because the mountains force the winds to rise, causing more rain on the side facing the wind, called the windward side. Example, the Western Ghats in India get a lot of rain on the windward side, the side facing the wind. 7. Rain shadow effect on the other side of mountains. The other side of the mountains, called the leeward side, doesn't get much rain. This is known as the rain shadow effect. Example, the Western Ghats block rain on one side, making it wet there, but the other side, leeward, stays dry. And 8. Rain patterns in different places. In Indochina and the Philippines, the southwest monsoon brings a lot of rain during the summer. In Cambodia, there are only about 2 or 3 dry months when rainfall is less than 2 centimeters. In the interior of Thailand, there's a longer dry season lasting 5 to 6 months. In the Philippines, some rain comes from typhoons, strong tropical storms that often hit in September to November. 9. Other monsoon regions and rain. In other parts of the world with monsoon climates, the amount and pattern of rain depend on the direction of the coast and the shape of the land. Number 10. Winter season. Little or no rain. During winter, January and February are usually the driest months in tropical monsoon areas. However, northwestern India and the Ganges Valley can get some light rain from western disturbances, small storms from the west. In peninsular India, southern India, winter rain is more common along the eastern coast. 11. Uneven rainfall across the region. Rain doesn't fall evenly everywhere in tropical monsoon climates. Northern India, rain decreases from east to west and from north to south. The Punjab region, along with some western and northwestern areas, gets much less rain, giving them a semi-arid climate, almost dry. 12. Big changes in rainfall from year to year. Tropical monsoon regions often experience variability in rainfall. Rainfall amounts can change a lot from year to year. In some places, rainfall is unpredictable, especially where there's normally just enough rain in an average year. Example of rainfall variation. Places that get very little rain have the biggest changes in rainfall from year to year. Even where it normally rains a lot, the amount can still change quite a bit from place to place and year to year. Summary. Tropical monsoon climates have heavy rains in the summer and a short, dry season. Summer rains come when moist winds from the ocean rise over the land, especially near mountains. Rainfall is uneven across different regions, and there are often big changes in rain from year to year. Some areas get typhoons and seasonal rain patterns depending on coastlines and mountains. This is a full view of rainfall in tropical monsoon climates, explained step by step for clarity. All right, let's break this down into simpler parts. Natural vegetation and climate. Natural vegetation means the plants, trees and forests that grow in an area on their own without humans planting them. The tropical monsoon climate, areas with a rainy and dry season, affects what types of plants and trees grow there. In this climate, the amount of rainfall, precipitation, and when it falls, are key factors that decide the types of plants and trees in an area. Where there's more rain near the equator, closer to the middle of the earth, it rains a lot, especially during the rainy season. In these areas, the tropical monsoon forest looks similar to a tropical rainforest because both get a lot of rain. Tropical rainforests are full of different plants and trees, growing very close together and always green because it rains frequently. Seasonal rain limit species. However, monsoon forests don't have as many different kinds of plants and trees as tropical rainforests. Why? Because rain in monsoon forests is seasonal, meaning it comes only during certain months, and then there is a dry season. This means only certain kinds of plants and trees that can survive both heavy rain and long dry periods can grow there. Drier areas away from the equator. As you move further from the equator, the climate gets drier with less rainfall. In these areas, rainforests disappear. Instead, you find sparse jungles, thinner forests. Thorn forests appear with trees and bushes that have thorns to protect themselves and conserve water. Savanna grasslands also appear, which are large open areas with grass and few trees. These plants and trees are adapted to survive with little water. Summary. Natural vegetation in tropical monsoon areas changes depending on how much rain falls and where. Closer to the equator, heavy rainfall creates thick monsoon forests that look like tropical rainforests. Further from the equator, less rainfall leads to sparse jungles, thorny forests and grasslands. All right, let's go even more simply and look at every part carefully to make sure it's really easy to understand. What is natural vegetation? Natural vegetation means all the plants and trees that grow naturally in an area without people planting them. The climate, especially the rain and temperature, decides what kind of plants and trees grow in a place. Tropical monsoon climate and rain. Tropical monsoon climate has two main seasons. One, a rainy season, lots of rain. Two, a dry season, very little rain. Plants and trees in this climate have to survive both seasons. They need to handle heavy rain at one time and little to no rain at another. Where these climates are found, countries like India, Myanmar, Burma, Thailand and Cambodia have tropical monsoon climates. This climate is also found in parts of West Africa, Central and South America and Southeast Asia. Because of the rain, these areas often have lush green plants, but they change based on how much rain falls.
Cash.
Types of vegetation based on rainfall. The amount of rainfall changes how thick or sparse the vegetation is. Here's how it works. 1. Places with heavy rain. In places near the equator, like southern India's Malabar coast or Assam, there is heavy rain. Here you find thick green forests similar to tropical rainforests. Rainforests have lots of different plants and are always green and dense. 2. Places with moderate rain. In areas with medium-moderate rain, you find deciduous forests. Deciduous forests are forests where trees drop their leaves season to save water. These forests are not as dense as rainforests, and the trees are spread. 3. Drier areas. In drier areas where rain is very little, you find thorny bushes and grasslands. These areas have plants that can survive with little water, like thorny bushes and savanna grass. Here, thorny bushes are found in western and northwestern parts where there isn't much rain. Special trees in monsoon forests. Some valuable trees in monsoon forests are teak. This tree has strong wood and is very valuable for making furniture. It's found in India and Myanmar. Shisham, Indian rosewood, also used for furniture. Sal, known for its hardwood. Mango tree, neem, jamun. These are common trees found in India's monsoon forests. Why deciduous trees shed leaves? In the tropical monsoon climate, the rainy season is followed by a dry season. Deciduous trees have adapted to this by shedding their leaves before the dry season starts. Why? Because leaves need water, and without leaves, the tree uses less water. This helps the tree survive the dry season. Monsoon forests compared to rainforests. Monsoon forests are more open than rainforests, meaning you can see through them easier because they aren't as dense. Differences in monsoon forests. Trees are shorter and don't grow as tall as in rainforests. The branches start lower on the tree trunk. The bark of trees is thick and rough, which helps the tree store water and survive the dry season. The tree tops, canopy, are large and round, which helps catch rain. How trees are spread out. In a small area of monsoon forest, there can be 30 to 40 different kinds of trees. This mix of trees gives the forest a unique look, with some trees taller, some shorter, and different shapes of leaves. Monsoon forests around the world. Monsoon forests aren't only found in India. Myanmar, Thailand, Cambodia have monsoon forests. West Africa, Central America, and South America also have areas with monsoon forests. These forests are often found near tropical rainforests, but have different trees and plants because of the wet, dry season. Summary: natural vegetation in tropical monsoon climates depends on rain and seasons. Heavier rain means thicker forests, while less rain means fewer trees and more bushes or grass. In India, this changes from rainforests in the south to thorny bushes in the dry northwest. Deciduous trees are special because they shed leaves to save water during dry seasons. Monsoon forests have adapted to handle both the rainy and dry seasons, making them unique and different from other forests. All right, let's go through this step by step in simple terms. Animals in humid, dense forests. In humid areas, places with a lot of moisture and rain, the forests are dense, full of thick, tall trees that grow close together. Because the trees grow so close together, you mostly find animals that can fly, like birds and insects, or climb, like monkeys, in these forests. These animals can move easily through the trees, living in the high, dense branches. Animals in drier, more open areas. In drier regions, places with less rain, the trees are more spread out and there are large open spaces with grasslands. In these grassland areas, you find larger animals that live on the ground. Some of these animals are carnivores, meat eaters, and some are herbivores, plant eaters. Examples of animals in drier regions: carnivores. These are animals that hunt and eat other animals. Some examples include tigers, lions, leopards, all big cats that hunt, wolves and jackals, both hunt smaller animals. Herbivores. These are animals that eat plants, grass and leaves. Some examples include elephants, they eat a lot of plants and grass. Wild buffalo and rhinoceros, big animals that graze on grass. Deer and antelope, they eat plants and run fast to escape predators. Summary: humid, dense forests mostly have flying and climbing animals that live in the trees. Drier, open regions have large ground animals, some of which are carnivores, meat eaters like tigers and lions, and others are herbivores, plant eaters like elephants and deer. All right, let's go into even more detail in the simplest way possible. Imagine we're learning about a place that is really, really hot, has hardly any water, and very few plants or animals. This place is called a tropical, subtropical hot desert, or a Sahara-type climate. We'll go step by step to understand why these deserts are so hot and dry. 1. What is the Sahara-type climate? This climate is found in places like the Sahara Desert in Africa. It's known for being extremely hot during the day, cooler at night, and very dry all the time. These deserts have almost no rain, which is why there are few plants and animals. Deserts with this kind of climate are sometimes called hot deserts because they are hot and get very little water. Now 2, where are these deserts found? These deserts are mostly found in areas between 15 degrees and 35 degrees north and south of the equator. The equator is the line that divides the Earth in half and is the warmest area. Examples of hot desert in North Africa: Arabian Desert in the Middle East, Thar Desert in India and Pakistan, Kalahari and Namib deserts in southern Africa, Australian Desert in Australia, Atacama Desert in Chile and Peru. Where on the continents? These deserts are mostly found on the western edges of continents, meaning they're closer to the western sides of oceans like the Atlantic and Pacific. 3. Why are these deserts so dry? To understand why these deserts get almost no rain, we need to know a little about how air works. Air pressure and high pressure zones. Above these deserts, there are areas called high pressure zones. In these zones, air moves down towards the Earth. When air moves down, it gets compressed, squeezed together, and warmer. Warm air holds more water. When air gets warm, it can hold more moisture, water in the form of vapor. This means that the air does not release water to form clouds or rain. So because the air is warm and dry, it doesn't rain over these deserts. Trade winds. These deserts are also in an area with trade winds. Trade winds are steady winds that blow from east to west. They don't bring in any moisture, which means they don't bring rain either. Because of the high pressure zones and trade winds, these deserts stay dry all year. 4. What makes these deserts so hot? Sunlight and no clouds. There are hardly any clouds in the sky, so the sun shines directly on the ground. This makes the land very hot during the day. Dry air. The dry air doesn't hold much heat, so the temperature can change a lot. This means it's scorching hot during the day and cool at night. Sand and rocks heat up quickly. The ground, which is mostly sand and rocks, heats up very fast in the sun, but also cools down quickly at night. In short, the strong sun, lack of clouds, and dry air make these deserts extremely hot by day. 5. Why is it called the Sahara-type climate? We call it this because the Sahara Desert is one of the largest and most famous hot deserts on Earth. This desert's climate is a perfect example of what we mean by hot desert climate. Just like the Sahara, other deserts with this climate have very high temperatures, very little rain, very few plants and animals. 6. Examples of hot desert conditions. Sahara Desert, Africa. It's one of the hottest places on Earth. Sometimes people there go for months without any rain. Atacama Desert, Chile. This desert is known as the driest desert in the world. Some parts of it haven't seen rain for decades. 7. Special adaptations of plants and animals. Living in a hot desert climate is tough. Most plants and animals can't survive here, but a few have special ways to deal with the heat and dryness. Cacti. These plants store water in their thick stems so they can survive long periods without rain. Camels. Camels can go days without water and can store fat in their humps to survive long journeys in the desert. Summary of why deserts with the Sahara-type climate are hot and dry. 1. High pressure air. Air is always moving downward, getting warmer and holding more moisture. This keeps the air dry and prevents rain. 2. Location of deserts. They are usually on the western side of continents where dry winds and high-pressure systems are common. 3. These winds don't bring moisture, so they don't bring rain to these deserts. 4. Intense sunlight. No clouds mean the sun's heat hits directly on the ground, making it very hot. 5. Few plants and animals. Only special plants like cacti and animals like camels can survive here due to the lack of water and high temperatures. By understanding these parts, we get why these deserts are some of the driest, hottest places on Earth. They have unique weather, air pressure, and wind patterns that make them very different from other climates. All right, let's go through this topic slowly and in the easiest way possible. We're going to break down each part so it's very clear. Why are deserts found mostly on the western sides of continents? Most big deserts like the Sahara in Africa and the Atacama in South America are on the western edges of continents. A scientist named Trewartha identified 3 main reasons why this happens. Let's go through each reason one at a time. Reason 1, the air on the western side is very stable. Over the ocean near these deserts, there are areas of high pressure where the air is very calm and doesn't move much. High pressure areas mean the air is steady, not moving up or down. This calm, stable air doesn't bring any rain. So on the western sides of continents, like the Sahara along the Atlantic Ocean, this stable air keeps things very dry because it doesn't let clouds form or rain happen. Reason 2, trade winds drop rain on the eastern side first. There are special winds called trade winds. These winds blow from east to west across the ocean. As the trade winds travel over the ocean, they pick up moisture or water. When these winds reach the eastern side of continents, they drop their moisture as rain. By the time these winds reach the western side of the continent, they are already dry because they've already dropped their rain on the eastern side. Example, think of it like a sponge soaked with water moving across a table. When it reaches the eastern side, it squeezes out all the water, rain. By the time it reaches the western side, it's dry. No water left to drop. Reason 3, fewer rainstorms on the western side. On the eastern sides of continents, there are more rain-producing systems, also called atmospheric disturbances. These systems bring rain because they stir up the air, allowing clouds to form and rain to fall. But the western sides of continents don't have many of these rain-producing systems. The air is calm and doesn't move much, so it doesn't bring any rain. Summary so far. 1. The western air is very stable and calm, not allowing rain. 2. Trade winds drop their rain on the eastern side first, so the western side gets only dry air. 3. The western side has fewer rainstorms, making it even drier. Why do cold ocean currents make deserts even drier? On the western side of continents, there are often cold ocean currents. These are streams of cold water that flow along the coastlines. Let's see how they make deserts even drier. When air moves over these cold currents, it cools down quickly. Cold air can't hold much water, so it reaches a point where it's fully loaded with moisture. When this happens, it creates fog instead of rain. Because the air is cold and heavy, it doesn't rise. This creates a lid on the air above, stopping any movement that would allow clouds or rain to form. We call this a temperature inversion. A layer of cold air is trapped below warmer air. Example, imagine putting a lid on a pot of soup. The lid traps everything inside. In these desert areas, this inversion acts like a lid, trapping the cold air close to the ground so there's no rain.
Where do we see this?
Atacama Desert in South America, Namib Desert in Southwest Africa. These deserts have fog but very little rain because of these cold ocean currents. The fog doesn't bring enough moisture to make a difference in the dryness. How large deserts create their own dry air? Some big deserts, like the Sahara in Africa or the Australian desert, actually produce their own hot, dry air. 1. The ground heats up. In deserts, the sun is very strong. The ground heats up a lot. 2. Hot air rises. This hot ground warms the air above it, causing the air to rise. Rising air is usually a good thing for making clouds. 3. Extreme dryness prevents rain. But here's the problem. This air is very dry. So even when the hot air rises and cools, it can't form clouds or rain because there's no moisture in it. Example of how dry it is. Sometimes in deserts, rain clouds, called cumulonimbus clouds, may form. But because the air below is so dry, the rain evaporates before it hits the ground. It's like throwing water into a hot oven. It turns into steam instantly and doesn't reach the bottom. A quick summary of why deserts are dry. 1. Stable, calm air. The air over the western oceans is steady, which doesn't allow rain. 2. Trade winds drop rain on the east first. Trade winds blow from east to west and lose their moisture on the eastern side. 3. Few rainstorms. The western side doesn't have many storms, unlike the eastern side. 4. Cold ocean currents. These currents cool the air, creating fog and stopping rain clouds from forming. 5. Large deserts make their own dry air. The hot, dry air in deserts rises, but doesn't produce rain because it has no moisture. These factors work together to keep deserts extremely dry, especially on the western edges of continents. All right, let's dive into this topic step by step, keeping it super simple and clear. Let's talk about why plants and animals in deserts are so different and how they survive in such a dry place. Why is there so little water in the desert? Deserts are extremely dry places where it hardly ever rains. Plants and animals need water to live, just like we do. Since there isn't much water, only certain plants and animals can survive in deserts. These plants and animals have special ways to handle the heat and lack of water. Desert plants. How do they survive without much water? Because water is so scarce, there are fewer plants in deserts than in places like forests or grasslands. Let's look at how they manage to survive. 1. Special types of plants called xerophytes. Xerophytes are plants that can live with very little water. These plants are specially designed to hold on to any water they can find. 2. How do desert plants hold on to water? Desert plants have some cool features that help them keep water. Thick bark. Their bark, the outer layer, is thick, which prevents water from evaporating. Waxy leaves. Many desert plants have a waxy coating on their leaves. This waxy layer stops water from escaping. Thorns instead of leaves. Plants like cacti have thorns instead of regular leaves. Thorns lose less water than leaves would. Plus, thorns help protect the plant from animals that might want to eat it. Small or no leaves. Some desert plants have tiny leaves or none at all. Smaller leaves mean less water is lost. 3. How desert plants store water. Some plants like cacti store water inside their stems or leaves. This way they have a supply of water for dry periods. When it does rain, these plants absorb as much water as possible and keep it stored for later. 4 deep roots to find water. Plants like acacias have very deep roots that reach down into the ground to find hidden water sources. These roots can go down very far to reach underground water like mini wells. Different types of plants in deserts. Besides cacti and acacias, there are also flowering plants in deserts. These plants often bloom only after it rains. Their seeds stay in the ground waiting for the next rainfall. When it rains, the flowers quickly bloom, grow, make seeds, and die, all in a short time. How desert plants change with the seasons. In deserts, the amount of plant cover, how many plants are growing, changes a lot from season to season and year to year. Some years, if there's a bit more rain, there might be more plants. In other years, if there's very little rain, you might barely see any plants at all. Animal life in the desert, how do they survive? Just like plants, desert animals have to survive the dry and hot desert climate. Let's look at how they manage. Typical desert animals. Camels are the most famous desert animals. They can survive for a long time without water because they store fat in their humps, which they can use as energy when they don't have food or water. Reptiles like snakes and lizards also do well in deserts because they don't need much water. Rodents, small animals like mice, are common in deserts too. 2. How desert animals handle the heat and dryness. Staying underground. Many desert animals live in burrows or holes underground. These burrows are cooler and keep them out of the sun. Coming out at night. Most desert animals are nocturnal. This means they sleep during the hot daytime and come out at night when it's cooler to look for food and water. 3. Small size helps. Most desert animals are small in size. Smaller animals lose less water and need less food to survive, which helps them in the harsh desert environment. Quick summary. 1. Desert plants need less water and have ways to store water or find deep water. Have features like thick bark, waxy leaves, thorns, and deep roots to save water. 2. Desert animals adapted to dry conditions by living in burrows and coming out at night. Camels can go long periods without water, reptiles need less water, and small animals survive by staying underground. Extra example, the camel's adaptation. Let's take the camel as a final example of desert survival. A camel has thick fur on top of its body to keep the sun's heat away. It has long eyelashes and can close its nostrils to keep out sand. Its feet are wide and padded to walk easily on sand without sinking. Final thoughts. In the desert, every plant and animal has found special ways to survive in a place where there's almost no water and lots of heat. They are like survival experts, permitted to one of the toughest places on Earth,